When it comes to the Call of Duty franchise, there have been two established long-running series to enjoy. We've got the Modern Warfare series, and then we have the Black Ops series of games. The Modern Warfare series, while initially inspired by real-life modern combat engagements from the time, eventually grew into fictionalized combat in a modern setting. Modern Warfare 2 and 3 did something really interesting with its fictional Russo-American/World War going on. Depicting an invasion of the continental United States was crazy, and the missions you completed were engaging, atmospheric, and most important of all, it was fun.
Yes, Sergeant Foley, I will defend the Burger Town.
These games have delivered memorable moments and created some of the best characters the series has ever known. And then they rebooted it. But on the opposite side of the Call of Duty coin was the Black Ops series, which was introduced back in 2010. Black Ops was Activision's chance to get weird not only with history, but also let them be a little abstract with the Call of Duty formula, and by God did it work. They presented a new era of history, with the first game being set during the early parts of the Cold War, and it featured the Vietnam War heavily. They decided to deviate from previous Call of Duties by having a more complex narrative. They did this by making the first game revolve around main protagonist Alex Mason having been captured by Soviets and brainwashed. The framing device for the game was Mason being interrogated by an unknown figure, and he was simply just retelling events.
What's your name?
Fuck you!
Where were you born?
Kiss my ass!
These events were in connection with his kidnapping and the Numbers conspiracy that deals with a plot to assassinate John F. Kennedy and also possibly launch nukes at the US. But outside of that, the game itself wasn't too ridiculous. You took part in your average Call of Duty missions with large-scale conflicts and your grittier missions with smaller teams that were unraveling the whole sleeper agent/Nova 6 problem. The game brought back fan favorite Viktor Reznov, which made it more of a sequel to World at War, which was dope. And when it comes to Call of Duty, if you are both well received and make money, you typically get a sequel. Black Ops was both of these things, so naturally we got Black Ops 2 in 2012. RIP Ghosts, Advanced, and Infinite Warfare. Black Ops 2 was more of the good stuff, with an interesting villain that actually had a decent point to make so you could empathize with them.
I am going to commit great crime!
The devs included more real-world figures and wove them into their fictional narrative in a fashion that worked for many people. Except for Noriega himself, he wasn't so happy with it. You know, now that I think about it, neither was the Cuban government when it came to Black Ops 1. Shit. Anyways, what was most interesting and unforeseen about Black Ops 2 was the decision to jump about 60 years into the then future of 2025 after the events of the first game. Because of this, Activision and co. took some creative liberties with the game's technology and the political landscape of the world. The story of Black Ops 2 had it all, really. Fun and interesting characters along with action set pieces that grabbed your attention and immersed you in the game. The narrative had interesting twists and turns with deception and even some emotional beats. To top it all off, they gave the player some agency to make choices that actually dictated how the story would play out. However, in my opinion and possibly many others, they have done almost nothing but fumble the storyline since this game. While the Black Ops series has not been officially rebooted, it has suffered a stranger fate. The Black Ops series has just been strung along for the past 15 years or so, getting random installments that are all over the place. Even when they try to continue storylines, they do so in a manner that is just bizarre and unnecessary. Looking at this series that is now 7 games deep, it's interesting to me how inconsistent these campaigns are. So that's the question we're trying to answer today in this video. Why are Black Ops campaigns so inconsistent? And yes, this video was brought upon by the malignant tumor that is the Black Ops 7 campaign. Yes, I am jumping onto the massive dog pile that is on top of this game, and in typical fashion for this channel, we're doing it much later because I only recently played Black Ops 7, so fuck it. To answer this question, we will cover all 7 games, not in their entirety of course, but enough to try and deliver some sufficient answers for our task at hand. So of course, please do remember that this is just my opinion, so let's respect it as such. The claims and perspectives I share on these games is just that, and I'm not trying to say it's the end-all be-all and that everybody agrees with me. It's most certainly not the case here. I am well aware that every Call of Duty and its campaign has fans and people who had fun with it. So if I shit on a game you like or I praise a game you hate, it is what it is. Feel free to comment down below your opinions on the franchise. Tell me what you did or did not like about it. I'm always interested in reading your comments and learning your experiences with these games. Just adding in a quick disclaimer while editing this, a couple times throughout the video I will refer to Activision as being to blame and being behind certain problems, and while I know they're just the IP holder, the publisher, money man, etc., they're not the people who actually work on the games. There's like a baker's dozen studios that work on these games. I just use Activision as kind of like a blanket term instead of referring to every single studio every single time. Just felt like I should clear that up while editing this. Carry on. Last but not least, before we begin, please remember to like the video and subscribe too as we continue to approach the 1,000 subscriber mark, and I would hope to get off on the right foot for 2026. With that out of the way, let's begin.
I think the best way to tell the story is by starting at the end briefly, then going back to the beginning. Just to give it a bit of dynamism. Otherwise, it's just sort of a linear story.
Just tell us what happened.
So why is the Black Ops series so inconsistent? Well, we're going to start this chapter off with a bit of a hot take that is being made entirely with the benefit of hindsight. I think Activision has handcuffed themselves by making Black Ops 2 60 years into the future after the events of Black Ops 1. And I believe that this has resulted in some false positives and inconsistencies. Don't get me wrong, Black Ops 2 is an excellent campaign and still stands as one of the greats in the entirety of COD's history, not just the Black Ops series. When I say false positives, I mean I get the feeling that after the success of Black Ops 2 and how they made an interesting story span about 3 decades, Activision got the idea they could just jump to a random point in time and make it work and people would love it. Black Ops 2 is fantastic from a narrative stance, but that's not really saying too much because this is the first sequel in the series, so they had every option at their disposal. It's when we start looking at what comes after Black Ops 2 that the cracks begin to show and my point becomes clear. Our problem begins with the ending of Black Ops 2 because where do you go from there? Depending how you played it, it could be a definitive or open ending, so you'd think, well, maybe they pick up afterwards using one of the many endings as a canon ending, most likely an ending where Menendez lives. Only the game doesn't really do that with the next game in the franchise, 2015's Black Ops 3. In this game, there's another massive time jump into the 2060s where we pretty much completely abandon the fallout of Black Ops 2. There are 2 small minuscule connections this game has to its predecessors, the first being a random mention of Menendez's name, but it's in regards to a completely different subject that apparently stemmed from his drone attack, but I never heard of him attacking Cairo, just America and China, so that's weird. Then there's a blink and you miss it usage of Nova 6. It is quickly mentioned and forgotten each time it's brought up. Now, telling a new story in the same Black Ops universe isn't a bad thing at all. Anthologies can be really cool when they're done well, but let me be clear, Black Ops 3 is just not a good campaign. Now, I know this game is beloved by many for its online gameplay and its influence in zombies, but just to remind you, we are talking about campaigns only here. Black Ops 3 is just all over the place. The dialogue is clunky, the characters are not likable, and the technology just isn't as interesting as it thinks. Worst of all, its narrative is too complex for its own good, and its payoff is lackluster to say the least. It's not all bad, honestly. Black Ops 3 did at least serve as the starting point for some interesting features that would return later on. This game was the first Black Ops game to feature a customizable character for you to play as. Additionally, this game also featured a safe house in between some missions, and here you could run training simulations, pick other missions, customize weapons and your loadouts too. Unfortunately though, the player customization is limited and the safe house is small and kind of boring, but it had a great personality. Your character doesn't even have a name for the whole game. You are simply just known as player, which is silly to me. It's done for a narrative purpose, but that doesn't fix it. This results in the player character having some of the flattest sounding dialogue I have heard in one of these games.
Hey, Hendricks. Where are we again? Oh, yeah. This is a CIA op. This is their safe house. This isn't real. It can't be. What is happening to me? It's the robots. They hacked the security robots. It's too much. Even with the computer in my head, there's not enough time.
Yeah, but in all honesty, you have to know what a dumb question that is. Of course this was Taylor's work. CIA brought them here because these fucking goons were sniffing around.
Hey.
我他妈有1000多个理由追杀严剑。
Hey.
Honestly, nobody was safe from the awful dialogue for this game.
Unfortunately, the ZSF underestimated the firepower these assholes were packing. They got caught with their pants down, and they took it hard. Outcome?
Train go boom.
Oh man. I can't even begin to tell you how good this tastes.
I also know that the Immortals won't take kindly to us popping Go-Bro and maiming his angry-ass sister.
They down there? The ones who killed my brother? Flood it.
My men are still
Flood
down
it
here.
now!
And I demand to speak to a legal representative. That would be me. Have a seat. You're being used. We're all being used. Don't you see that?
So, this game opens up following nondescript player character and their CEO Hendricks rescuing the Egyptian president from Ethiopia in the Nile River Coalition, or NRC. That sounds pretty cool, right? Well, the conflict is just for the background and doesn't really matter. Now, what you need to focus on is Christopher Maloney. Maloney plays John Taylor, a member of a Black Ops team that is also introduced at the start of the game. In this opening mission, your character is quite literally torn apart by some drones and you are saved by Taylor. Then the player is rushed into surgery where they are implanted with a piece of technology known as a DNI, or direct neural interface. It is this piece of technology that the entire plot revolves around. You see, another problem for Black Ops 3 is that it was released in the middle of the futuristic Call of Duty era that people hated the more it went on, most notably with Infinite Warfare that was released the following year. The DNI is a cerebral augmentation that helps create these cyber super soldiers. Basically, it gives you the special abilities in combat such as wall running, improved strength, and the ability to control drones and interface with devices. The next mission explains all of what you can do while introducing a bunch of disappointingly empty characters. Because this is a Black Ops game, there has to be some level of conspiracy going on. In this game, that conspiracy is centered around the discovery of a CIA black site where there had been evidence of human experiments. You see, within this DNI technology, there was a glitch, if you will, and this glitch created an AI that will become known as Corvus. Now, this game does a piss-poor job at explaining who Corvus really is. Like, it's extremely backloaded and all the context comes right before the end. Instead, you spend the entire game chasing after Taylor, who, along with his team, have supposedly gone rogue and released not only information pertaining to these experiments, but also just sensitive CIA documents in general. What you don't know is that he's been infected by Corvus, and Corvus has basically taken control of the DNI in Taylor's head. The build up to this game's big reveal is just all over the place. After spending hours going after Taylor and having to eliminate his team one by one, Taylor cuts out his DNI and fucking dies right in front of you. Then, Hendrix, your companion throughout the game, becomes a sudden antagonist as he is corrupted by Corvus. He had become increasingly irritated as the game went on as a signal that he was compromised, but it really just made him extremely unlikable. Then the final mission, the big rug pull. You chase Hendrix down to Zurich, Switzerland, to the headquarters of a tech company called the Coalescence, who have been connected to the conspiracy all game long. They worked with the CIA to create the DNI, and coincidentally, they made Corvus too. You find Hendrix with the CEO of the Coalescence, and here is where the game jumps the shark. Hendrix kills the CEO, you kill Hendrix, and then you shoot yourself, thinking that will stop the infection and end Corvus. Incorrect! You instead find yourself in a form of afterlife created by Corvus for DNI users. Taylor is alive and he helps you purge your DNI system to get rid of Corvus. It is only here in the final mission that the player gets their first look at Corvus and also gets what can best be described as their backstory. The experiments involving the DNI were about understanding the human mind and what decisions it makes. The Coalescence and the CIA by extension wanted to know its users' thoughts, for preventing catastrophic consequences and all that jazz, but all we got was a lousy AI. Corvus is kind of interesting because he isn't all-knowing or even all-powerful. He's literally locked in the DNI system. It's not like Ultron or something. Corvus doesn't really know what his purpose truly is, and he's afraid and scared more than anything. He was actually the one responsible for the disaster in Singapore because he was created by accident during the experiments, and his base of knowledge and experience comes from those test subjects. So all he knew was pain and suffering from it. To take down Corvus, you must venture into this afterlife he has created, and you just have to burn 3 hearts of Corvus, and all the while your character is slowly going insane.
Surrender yourself to your dreams. Let them wash over you like the gentle waves of the bluest ocean. Let them envelop you, comfort you. The trees around you so tall they touch the sky. It cannot overcome the warmth of your beating heart. Do you hear it aloud? Do you hear it slowing? You're in control!
Once you burn and destroy the final piece of Corvus, he seemingly appears in the real world to attack you, and Taylor has to restrain him while the player commits to purging their DNI. You complete this and slowly saunter out of the building as your DNI reboots and White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane fades in the background. You then exit to see a Zurich Security Forces soldier asking you for your name. You name drop Taylor and it just cuts to fucking black. What the fuck, guys? Yeah, so that came out of left field and was not something that felt set up and was not something you would see coming unless this was like your second playthrough. So yes, you were Taylor the whole time, and it turns out that this campaign was almost entirely a simulation in your mind. Your character actually died during surgery and doesn't matter. Every mission simply replaced Taylor with you. Taylor was with Hendrix all along or something like that. And if you're asking yourself, then who was Taylor replacing in the campaign? It was a man named Dylan Stone. Who the fuck is Dylan Stone? Good question. He's the dude who actually discovered the black site and did all the heinous shit throughout the game under the control of Corvus. The way you can find this out? Reading a comic book. or by recording and slowing down the speedy scrolls of text at the beginning of every mission that explain the real happenings in the story. These are pieces of Taylor's official report. I'm not against having multimedia stories, but I think it's best done when those external forms of media cover stories that just exist in the world or act as additional fun stories that give characters something to do, not as a piece of crucial need-to-know information that's critical for the plot to make sense. The game just feels like a different type of story that just got the Black Ops name slapped on it to help market it as people were starting to turn on the futuristic games. Again, I feel like Black Ops 2 gave the devs and the writers the feeling they could do anything with the Black Ops formula and people would just love it. They have another huge time jump in this game, but they made the crucial mistake and left behind the characters and the narrative that players loved, and they were all the worse for it. Although, I think the devs kinda knew that, but they didn't fully understand it, as we'll come to find out as we transition to Black Ops 4. See, while I did certainly sound like I hate Black Ops 3, I do think there's some good within its campaign. The weapon selection is great, as I felt there was a lot of options, and the armories littered around each level allow you to change up your arsenal quite frequently. And while I really don't like the narrative and its payoff with the confusing ass twist, some of the missions you take part in are fun and present interesting scenarios. Another good thing that Black Ops 3 has going for it is that it's not Black Ops 4. So with this example, the inconsistency is glaringly obvious. Here with Black Ops 4, they made the galaxy brain decision to not make a campaign, at least not fully. They abandoned it partway through development and went fully into the online multiplayer side of things. Black Ops 4 was the beginning of the Warzone era of Call of Duty, as this game featured the Blackout mode, which was the precursor to Warzone. The game did have some semblances of a story being featured, so I can include it in this video. As one can probably imagine, it is barely a story at all. It's a few ideas and concepts thrown around like wet spaghetti at a wall. Like, if you read about the development of this game, at first they said they totally planned to not do a traditional campaign. And then their story changed to, oh, we were actually planning on doing what we're gonna call a career mode and make it a two-person kind of co-op story taking place after Black Ops 3. And then that was scrapped and things morphed once more into the Specialist HQ that we got. The Specialist HQ is just a series of training courses for the game's operators, as Black Ops 4 was also trying to be Rainbow Six Siege. Once you complete the tutorials, you are shown cutscenes for this game's bizarre half attempt at a story. The story is set in the 2040s, with the cutscenes mostly following an operator known as Ruin. He was a part of a Black Ops team alongside another operator known as Battery and this dark-haired woman named Jessica. The individuals they are targeting, who for some unexplained reason are all wearing face masks that resemble ghosts from Modern Warfare, these guys are tipped off that Ruin and his team are there, and it doesn't end well. Ruin and Battery escape with their lives, and a few years later they are both recruited alongside the other operators by the sister of Jessica, tech trillionaire Savannah Mason Meyer. That's right, it's no coincidence of a surname. She's the daughter of David Mason and the granddaughter of Alex Mason. Which, fun fact, this game is the last time that Sam Worthington would voice Alex Mason. That kind of fucking stings. After Ruin is recruited, he believes things are not as they seem. Why? They don't explain. He received a shady encoded message that tells him to not trust Savannah. As time goes on, he gets the feeling that there was something off about their fateful attack gone wrong. What was off? They don't explain. The last cinematic with Ruin shows him surviving an attempted home invasion by the Ghost PMC, and he flees to a warehouse that he was instructed to go to by this random hacker that gave him that message. He enters to find that Jessica survived the attack and was able to recruit the other operators, and they're now all gonna work together to save the world. What they're saving the world from, they don't explain. At least not in any of these cutscenes do they bother explaining anything, but you can find intel that will inform you that Savannah is behind something sinister known as Project Blackout. Why is it sinister?
I don't know!
The intel you can unlock will also reveal that Jessica opposed the project, and her and Savannah got into a heated argument which resulted in Savannah shooting Jessica. Yeah, the whole mission gone wrong thing never actually happened, and you'd only know this if you really fucking enjoyed the training courses, because you gotta do them a few times to get all of the intel. Somehow, Savannah was able to manipulate the memories of Ruin and Battery, eventually recruiting them for Blackout, just to then want to kill all the operators. Why? They don't explain. With Savannah's Project Blackout, she is able to revive dead people within her program. They don't make it entirely clear if the people are just a part of the operating system or if they're truly alive. It's very inconsistent. With Project Blackout, Savannah is able to revive 4 key characters from the Black Ops series in Victor Reznov, Alex Mason, and Raul Menendez, who is apparently helping run Project Blackout. Lastly, she also revived Frank Woods, who helped train the operators who have been recruited. This was also the last game to feature James C. Burns as the voice of Woods. Black Ops 4 was also the first to throw zombies into the story mode, if you want to call it that, as in the training course for recon you have to fight off the undead, but this entire thing is a training simulation, so you can kinda allow it. That was weird, but you know what's weirder about this game? They openly state that Savannah, again the granddaughter of Alex Mason, being in a relationship of sorts with the reincarnated Frank Woods. Yes, Ghost Frank Woods is trying to sleep with his best friend's granddaughter, which is a bizarre sentence to say out loud. And it's not subtle or anything, like there's a whole calling card to unlock, which is just them embracing like the weird couple you knew back in high school. It's absolutely wild and it's an awful change to the story, but it's not the most damaging change to the Black Ops story in this game, as the final cinematic in the Specialist HQ is Alex Mason in a wheelchair in an abandoned asylum where Woods and apparently Savannah are attempting to brainwash Mason again. They're seemingly also trying to rewrite the whole Kabongo River thing from Black Ops 2. Woods stands there and ominously states that it's always been Mason in the box and not Woods. Then it just ends on a cliffhanger that's never resolved or even mentioned again. As it should be, because that's fucking dumb. It hasn't been declared outright if it's considered canon or not, but I'll assume it's been quietly erased from canon because of Black Ops 7. To this day, I still wonder why they even decided to pick apart the Black Ops storyline for this game and do it in such a bizarre way. While I did say Black Ops 3 was too complex for its own good, it did at least attempt a structured narrative. It was erratic and underwhelming, sure, but at least the beats kind of flow. With Black Ops 4, it just throws random cutscenes at you and there's just random leaps in story and logic. And I know it may sound like I'm being nitpicky here, but if they decided to just not include the cutscenes and just keep all the training stuff with Woods, it would work fine. But no, they had to bring back everybody and try to absolutely fuck with everything they've built up until then. Like, what was the point? Especially in a game that went all in for the multiplayer side of things, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I actually like the Black Ops 4 multiplayer. I put a lot of hours into it, although I guess it wasn't well received as they never did the operator-based multiplayer again like they did here. All the story stuff was nothing but a detriment to the Black Ops world, and it stands out as a major point of inconsistency for the series. Kind of a shame, yeah, but this resulted in the Black Ops series returning to form. That's right, up next is Black Ops Cold War. Spoiler alert, I like this campaign.
We can work so hard.
After spending majority of the 2010s beating the dead horse that was making futuristic Call of Duties, the franchise as a whole decided to reset the clock starting in 2017 with a return to World War II, no doubt spawned out of envy for the success of Battlefield 1. Then there was the reboot of the Modern Warfare series in 2019, and in 2020 they finally brought the Black Ops series back to the setting and characters that people loved. When it comes to relating Black Ops Cold War to our topic, we are reminded that inconsistencies are not always bad. It actually depends on some things being good along the way to make the trend noticeable, otherwise it's just all bad. This game still stands as the best attempt the series has had when it comes to adding to the pre-existing lore within the Black Ops series. Cold War takes full advantage of that by allowing players to spend more time with those beloved characters from the first two games like Woods and Mason.
I'm a goddamn onion, Mason.
You get to see more of these characters in their prime before what happens to them in 1986 and especially 1989 when Mason and Hudson were killed and Woods was put in a wheelchair. I will say, Cold War makes better use of the tone and vibe of the era more than previous titles, including the first game, which, to be fair, 1960s Cold War and 1980s Cold War are different. This game is drenched in all of that Cold War espionage, and it's actually quite a bit of fun if you ask me. In terms of gameplay mechanics, I like a lot of what Cold War had to offer. The sound design was really good, not even just the guns, but the movement itself had a good sound to it. While I can see why people dislike these segments that had you doing more spy work instead of the usual Call of Duty action and chaos, but for me, it worked here. I thought the mission in Berlin was interesting and it had a number of small details that can change depending how you play the game, just like Black Ops 2. I thought infiltrating the KGB headquarters was somewhat interesting because that's pretty serious and the game gives you a number of ways to go about things, giving the player some fun agency. I will say though, I did not like the random appearance from Imran Zakhaev. I thought that was Call of Duty blowing itself a little too hard, and I like my COD franchises to be separate entities in different timelines, thank you. At least it lets you jump him in the elevator.
Elevator conversation always gets awkward.
I liked how this game evolved the safe house that was first featured in Black Ops 3, making it feel more like the camp from Red Dead 2 in a way. I also thought the usage of customization for your playable character was interesting, as you could pick specific traits that impacted your gameplay with positive or negative effects. Like I said, there's something to enjoy getting to see Woods and Mason back in action, but I also enjoy the characters they introduced in this game, like Russell Adler. Adler is the key figure in this game's story, involving a mysterious man codenamed Perseus. His plan is to reverse engineer American nukes that are stored across many European nations, and he wants to detonate them and frame the United States. Which, as far as the Black Ops series goes, those are pretty grim circumstances. Adler's introduction in that first mission is also cool, as you track down a contact for Perseus.
I don't think you understand the situation. You Americans have rules. You have rules. You took hostages. The rules changed.
The plot of Cold War starts off fairly simple, and the twist is pretty well done. You progress through the story and try to find Perseus, and this involves you fighting through unique locations such as the Netherlands, Turkey, East Berlin, and a secret Spetsnaz training facility that is made to simulate an assault on mainland USA. It also gave us this gem.
Not a fucking word, Bill.
You can't have a Black Ops game without some mention of brainwashing or brain augmentation. In this game, the big twist is that your character, simply known as Bell, is a brainwashed agent of Perseus. He was actually in the opening mission, and you witnessed him get Swiss cheesed by one of the guys you were hunting. Adler noticed he was still alive, and he utilized fucking MK Ultra to implant memories into Bell's mind. The one mission, Fractured Jaw, Bell was never there. It was simply implanted into his mind as a way to explain how they acquired the communications intel that Bell had on him when he was shot in the opening. This is revealed in a fun and trippy segment that feels a lot like Stanley Parable, and I love that game. In this little mission, Adler tries to walk Bell through his fabricated memories as they try to zero in on Perseus. This revelation to the player sets up a truly interesting ending, as when going back through the memories, you get two different locations, Duga and Solovetsky. The game gives the player one final choice. You can either commit to helping Adler stop Perseus's plan to set off nukes across Europe, or you can stay loyal to Perseus and betray Adler. By choosing Solovetsky, you get the canon ending, and your team successfully stops Perseus from setting off the nukes. But if you choose Duga, you alert Perseus and his men of your plans to attack, and they prepare an ambush. This will result in the player having to fight against their team, including having to kill off guys like Woods, Mason, and Adler. That's a really fun and interesting non-canon ending that lets you do something no other Black Ops game has done, and I commend them for that. Also, of course, if you go the canon route and stop the nukes, then it raises the question of why doesn't Bell factor into the later story? Adler shoots him. Bam, done. A good solid conclusion for a character that was an asset the entire time and had fully served his usefulness. It puts a good bow on the story of this game. It's certainly one less loose end. It's a plot thread that works around the pre-established events in the series and allows fans to take on more missions with beloved characters, even if none of them are voiced by the same people. Though I think Damon Victor Allen does a good job as Woods, the Mason and Hudson replacements just don't feel right. Although, honestly, Hudson has some hard shoes to fill, considering the original voice work was done by Ed Harris, and when they couldn't get him back from the sequel, they had to pivot to a guy named Michael Keaton. Fucking Batman. There was also a point in time where I got the feeling that Cold War was like a form of soft reboot, and that it existed in a different timeline just with some of the same characters. But the more I play the game and sit here writing about it, I see how this story neatly fits into the Black Ops timeline, and the game still manages to be fun and unpredictable despite being a fill-in-the-gap type of game. Which is funny because this was allegedly not originally meant to be a Black Ops game, and yet it feels more Black Ops than both 3 and 4 combined. This game had fresh ideas that hadn't been done before, and the main campaign was relatively safe from any Warzone-inspired nonsense, unlike the Modern Warfare series at the same time. The only exceptions to that would be the optional side missions Operation Chaos and Red Circus. The process for completing these side missions is kinda cool. You can find evidence later through certain missions, and this will force the player to do some code breaking and some interesting espionage work to disrupt two Soviet spy rings, one in America and one in Europe. Unfortunately, they just aren't implemented effectively, and they don't truly feel important in the end. They both end in unsatisfying missions that, instead of hunting and taking down people involved, they both end with these open area missions that have you take down randomly scattered enemies and search for the handlers of these spy rings. You find the handlers, kill them, take a photo, and exfil. That's it. So a really interesting process to figure out the puzzles for a lackluster finish. So this game isn't perfect either, but it stands head and shoulders above the two Black Ops games that come before it. So for a moment, it may seem like Activision is getting the hang of it, like they still got it. Unfortunately, that wouldn't be the case.
Randy just doesn't understand. I mean, I love him dearly, but I hate Ricky more. I just don't want to have to put up with that prick for the rest of my life.
So we're going to do Black Ops 6 and 7 in a separate chapter here. They're the most recent games in the series, being the last two COD games in general. When we look at Black Ops 6, we see the ongoing phenomena that a lot of Call of Duty games experience, which is the feeling that people become kinder and more appreciative of the game when a newer one comes out and does something stupider. Black Ops 6 is forever thankful that Black Ops 7 exists because that game makes this look like $1,000,000. I can be quoted saying that I liked Black Ops 6 for the most part. I thought it was just okay. Not great, but not bad or anything. The game took its own risks, and for the most part, they still felt within the confines of what feels like a Black Ops game in terms of its setting, game mechanics, and mission objectives. I think the bones of the game are good, and it's the one Call of Duty game I've spent the most time with in recent years playing online and such. For the campaign, I found the new cast of characters to be passable for the most part. Felix in particular was a standout as this ex-Stasi member who is now a refined pacifist. I felt like majority of the missions, just in terms of spectacle and visuals, are enjoyable, and they try to stretch the boundaries of what Black Ops missions are about without overdoing it. Missions that stood out to me would be the Cradle, Ground Control, and Emergence, which may surprise some of you given what I'll say about Black Ops 7 in just a bit, but Black Ops 6 did the whole gas-infused nightmare bit in an acceptable manner because it was mostly just one fucking mission. Emergence had managed to actually be frightening despite the fact that it felt ripped right out of control. With Emergence, I enjoyed the amount of intrigue it gave our playable character in Case.
It's fantastic to see you again, Case 1. How have you been feeling? A friendly reminder that most of the facility is off limits to patients. I hope you understand.
Welcome back, Case. We thought we'd never see this place again. Don't worry, the Cradle can't hurt us anymore. We're special. We're stronger and faster than the rest, Case. That's what the Cradle was originally designed to do.
Case, sit rep. Haven't heard from you at all. Everything okay?
I still wish they gave him an actual likeness and didn't cover him up all game, but Case being the product of the Shadow Division pantheon utilizing the Cradle to essentially create a super soldier feels right up the Black Ops alley. It's just ridiculous enough that it belongs in a video game, but at the same time, you wouldn't be surprised if people actually tried something like this. Frank Woods from the Upside Down and Kaiju Michael Rooker does not feel like that. And as for the boss fights you take on in Emergence, they're fine. Like, I'm not a huge fan of them either, but at least they're not at the expense of a character, and they are more fun to me than the ones in Black Ops 7. Also, again, it's contained into that one mission, and then that's it. I don't like the stuff that comes later in Black Ops 6, but we'll get to that. One negative I have for Black Ops 6 was its Warzone-styled open area mission, with the only upside being the British guy you were working with. Also, Park is back, but much like Emergence, it's only one mission. When it comes to the other negatives I have with Black Ops 6, it has to do with the plot of the game and some of its major characters. Unfortunately, the whole Pantheon thing was half-baked and honestly boring outside of Case. Speaking of boring, Jane Harrow was a weak villain. Her whole motivation was weakly put together and displayed in such a way that didn't make anything clear to the player. Also, I found Harrow's plan to be kinda silly, like she wants to do a false flag gas attack with the Cradle so that she can get this guy fired and take his position. New World Order and all that bullshit. But like, you're the CIA. Aren't there better or more effective methods of deposing someone of power? And I dislike the whole separation anxiety part of the game, in particular those parts of the mission in her psyche that had you firing away at her inner demons or whatever. Oh, but you liked Emergence. Now you're contradicting yourself. Look, I didn't need to turn into fucking Osmosis Jones and help the truth serum work, especially because what's going on outside the house was far more exciting and interesting, so constantly going back into these weird mental segments just took the fun out of it. Then the ending of the game was kind of mixed for me. Your character, Case, the aforementioned government-created super soldier, chases down Harrow, fights their way onto a moving helicopter with her in it, and proceeds to take it down. It was visually interesting and it had some grit to it the way you killed Harrow. It did feel a little unsatisfying in the grand scheme of things, but hey, I was fine with it because the Cradle never comes up in Black Ops 2, which canonically isn't happening for like another 30 some odd years, so like Cold War, it managed to expand the Black Ops world with some new characters and issues, but it was still connected to those events from previous games. Just like Cold War, it looked as if Black Ops 6 managed to finish its story and tie up any loose ends so that it works with the rest of the series. But Activision couldn't think of a better idea for Black Ops 7, so somehow the Cradle returned. The Cradle is now in the hands of this person named Emma Kagan, the worst antagonist in Call of Duty history. Yes, worse than Harrow. Cause, at the very least, even if it was written in a confusing and erratic manner, they tried to give Harrow a backstory that made her a compelling villain. Her parents were killed, and allegedly it was ordered and carried out by the people she now works with, including her mentor, Russell Adler. That's some real Akira Kurosawa type shit, so yeah, it would make sense she would join Pantheon so that she can sow chaos against the people that wronged her, even if the method was completely overkill. With Kagan, they don't even try. There's nothing about her that you learn from playing the game other than the fact that she's a rich tech CEO. I had to read everything about her online. In the beginning of this game, they have this really awkward opening cinematic in which everything just looks off. Some would say AI generated, but I'm just going to assume that humans did this and it looks awful. See, Emma Kagan here is the CEO of the Guild, which is a robotics / weapons defense / private military company. It was also the name of the organization that Sev was a part of in the last game, but just forget that, they never explained the connection there. Kagan is in the opening news segment here because she is Port Authority on determining if this video of Raul Menendez claiming to be alive is real. Fun fact, I had to download a video of this opening cutscene because I didn't record my first playthrough. You can't replay that cutscene to my knowledge, and there's no way to restart your campaign so that you can see it. So excellent work, guys. But yeah, Emma Kagan is all like, yep, it's real. Bullshit. I put a bullet in that motherfucker 10 years ago. Also, it took the game one single cinematic to repeat their little subtitle color change, but it is nowhere near as warranted as it was in Modern Warfare 2, nor was it set up. It just happens. Then the game introduces you to her like second in command, Alden Dorn, but he's just Jackson Kane 2.0. Who's Jackson Kane? Glad you asked. He was the guy that was laughably put into the end of Black Ops 6 as this setup for another villain. He was hacking into Lou Diamond Phillips' computer at the end of Black Ops 6. He was barely shown in the game, just in the background, and you would have only noticed him if you really paid attention. Which has got to be the equivalent of the Galaga guy from the Avengers movie being the big reveal at the end instead of Thanos. But who cares about that? They clearly don't, because they abandoned that plotline in favor of whatever this is. So we're not even 15 minutes in and already you can see what's going on and how there's clearly a lack of effort being put into the story of this game or the consistency of the series' timeline as a whole. Now, to switch gears a tiny bit into something a little more positive, one positive thing I can say for Black Ops 7 is that when it's not doing the forced Warzone thing with the open world, the missions are not bad. The opening setup is good, albeit dumb when Kagan finally shows up and gasses you. Wait a minute. Call me stupid, but they don't explain how they've managed to recreate the Cradle after it was seemingly destroyed or lost in the water in Bulgaria. When I look it up, it says that they had taken samples from the remains of Case in Black Ops 6, which, how the fuck did you do that? It is the 2030s and that happened in the early 1990s. There's no way his body was not waterlogged to the point that you couldn't use the remains to recreate this very intricate toxin. There's just no way. I don't know, maybe some coroners or pathologists can comment down below and correct me or not. Kagan gasses the team and it doesn't work because the squad all have augmented brains with what are called C-Links, not to be confused with the DNI from Black Ops 3. The C-Link is a cerebral enhancement and for some reason, it nullifies the fatal effects of the Cradle and instead just puts the team into really manipulative hallucinations. This makes no sense. It seems the people behind this game don't remember what the Cradle is actually meant to do. Yeah, it made Case go temporarily insane, but it also made him freakishly strong. All those elite takedowns you were doing was just because Case is practically superhuman. Case is what he is because of the Cradle having been exposed to it basically since birth, so he should probably have a high tolerance from it and be affected differently. Everybody goes feral when exposed to the Cradle except for Case, but here in Black Ops 7 it just makes our team trip out and relive memories. Now because of these C-Links, it's said that the whole team shares in the hallucinations, but you'd never really know that because the stupid fucking game decided not to give you AI teammates. The big gimmick with this year's campaign was really pushing the co-op aspect, but ironically it's not available for couch co-op, you know, playing with your friends or your siblings in the same room together. It's online only, which nobody wanted. I've never seen anybody advocate for an online only COD campaign. And you'll have to remember to turn off squad fill unless you want to be playing the campaign with randoms, which who the fuck wants that? So if you want to play solo, that means your teammates are not actually there, but they'll speak over comms and they'll do specific actions within the game. So the game isn't even trying on that front as they can't make this system work consistently. David Mason might as well be hallucinating the rest of Spectre 1 because outside of cutscenes, you never fucking see them. The online only aspect to this game's campaign ruins a lot of things. You can lag out of the campaign. It's awful. Additionally, because of the online aspect of things, there's this over-reliance on these in-engine cutscenes that make everyone, including David Mason, look awful. Again, just making me think of how much better of a game graphically Black Ops 6 was. Life was better when the campaign was an offline mode and you could actually pause the damn game. Yeah, you can't fucking pause in this online campaign. I had to go put my dog outside and got distracted and I got fucking kicked from the campaign. So that's dumb, but anyways, turns out when you exploded the facility, the Cradle got out of the building and got into Avalon. Why is Activision trying so hard to make Avalon a thing? I have no idea. Like I mentioned earlier, Black Ops was the series that for the longest time did not implement Warzone elements into its campaign, unlike Modern Warfare, and it was all the better for it. Not anymore! In between the hallucinations and the few contained missions at the beginning, middle, and end of the game, Black Ops 7 goes head on into the open world and the Warzone gameplay when you're in Avalon, and it fucking sucks. The Cradle is now in Avalon and shit's fucked up, as you can see, and Emma Kagan's big bad plan is to manufacture the Cradle and disperse it across the globe. For some reason, Ireland wasn't good enough for an attack, I guess. Then, in classic evil CEO fashion, she would be the leader in helping the world in fighting back against the Cradle. They would hold the poison and the antidote at the same time. The next few hours are spent running around Avalon trying to stop this plan from being enacted. In doing so, you'll have to take on members of the guild who are paper-thin characters such as this evil scientist guy. Outside of the Avalon missions, there's a number of missions that are within the minds of our squad mates, reliving traumatic memories that are being played with by Emma Kagan and the Cradle. Now, I'm sure most of you have seen all over the internet the amount of silly boss fights you have to take on in these Cradle segments. What I don't get is how we are able to continue on with our mission and seemingly continue with objectives in the real world while still clearly hallucinating from the Cradle. What I don't understand is how outside elements become factors in these memories when they weren't there in the first place. For example, you're not actually talking to Frank Woods. Frank Woods is never actually there or in this game. You're looking for a guild informant who also happens to be held in a shipping container. Or even worse, later on we shoot down a guild drone, and for some reason the drone is in the next hallucination segment where we revisit the attack on Los Angeles in Black Ops 2 that was done with American drones, not guild drones. So there's one connection, but they're two separate things. Guy being in the shipping container now is not the same thing as Frank Woods being held in a shipping container back in fucking Angola in the 1980s. You see what I mean here? Moving on, I haven't talked about the other squad mates in Black Ops 7 because they just don't fucking matter. Samuels, you're boring and you weren't even the main guy on the Secret Service security team for the president in Black Ops 2. This guy was. Harper, technically, to some people, you're supposed to be dead. 50-50. What is it you do here? They also brought back Karma as another nod to Black Ops 2 for some reason, which just makes the canon of this series so fucking confusing because really only one of either her or Harper is supposed to survive in the more common endings that Black Ops 2 had. Even if you get the somewhat specific conditions for both of them to survive, why did we pick that avenue to make canon? Was it just because you wanted to bring Michael Rooker back? You could have had him voice a different character. Shit, you guys had Gary Oldman voice two different characters in the same game by dropping his fake Russian accent. What's stopping you guys now? Karma is legitimately so insignificant as just this generic hacker special agent that they could have just made a new character and it wouldn't have changed a thing. The writers behind this game just aren't even trying, just continuing to pander and make callbacks to characters that don't even really need it. Like, I really want to know the thought process in making the decision to abandon what they set up in Black Ops 6 just to jump back to David Mason in 2035, which, fun fact, puts David Mason at 56 years of age for this game. Yeah, man, David Mason looks incredible for 56. I can't wait for his daughter to shoot his other daughter in less than 10 years. Anyways, about halfway through the game, we switch gears a little bit and we actually get to play as a separate JSOC team in Spectre 2. This mission is actually pretty good. It's one of the 3 missions that are actually fun in this game, along with the first and last missions. Really, I think these people are here just to show off some of the operators in the multiplayer, which is lame. But hey, the mission is chaotic and action-packed, harkening back to the good old days of no Warzone. Guess what comes directly after this? More Avalon. As the game continues, Emma Kagan continues to be useless and is only capable of deepfaking herself into Alex Mason. She tries to get into David's mind. He says he knows who his dad is, and Kagan responds by saying she's read briefs on Alex Mason that David didn't know existed, which is never actually explained, and I'm glad they didn't. I would have hated to see them twist the identity and character of Alex Mason again like they tried to do in Black Ops 4. Just like in that game, it would make zero sense. Hey kids, did you like Vorkuta? How about a third time? Because the next hallucination takes us to Vorkuta, but not the real Vorkuta. This one's filled with zombies. Yeah, that's another thing that most people did not like about this game. It's overusage of zombies, spider things, and ghouls.
Ghouls?
At least that's how I felt. I hated how much it was implemented in this game. At least in Emergence, as time went on, the zombies that Case was hallucinating were flashing into Pantheon members, so you can make the assumption that he was just imagining the Pantheon soldiers as zombies, and also the Pantheon soldiers could have been affected by the cradle, and that's why they were acting so barbaric. Or he was just having a seizure on the ground the entire time and never actually went through any of that. I'm not sure. But that's still a better answer than whatever the fuck is going on here. What I mean is, why do the guild members appear in the hallucinations, like in full uniform? Why are we hallucinating a VTOL? It's so inconsistent. The zombies can attack the guild members, so it's not just a case of Section and the others hallucinating and the guild just being around them watching them trip out. They're clearly in the hallucination too, right? During the Frank Woods hallucination, the enemies were labeled as guild but looked like otherworldly beings. That I could understand. The soldiers were there, but the team imagined them differently. It's just so inconsistent, it makes no fucking sense. Later on, there's this reveal that there's been a mole feeding the guild information about JSOC and its teams, because they had to copy themselves from Black Ops 2 when they pulled the rug on players when Salazar turned on us. Shit was heartbreaking to most players because he was with us all game long. He was a meaningful character in the story. So I'm sorry if I fail to give a shit when it's revealed that Razor, the guy we knew existed for about 2 hours now, is revealed to be the mole. I don't give a shit because the mole subplot is barely talked about and it comes and it goes. Not really made to seem like all that big of a problem. It's resolved rather quickly, and the payoff is a weak boss fight with Razor. We played as him in one mission, but this is nowhere near as strong of a deception as was Salazar. I think another reason I don't like Razor is because he looks like me. The final mission in Black Ops 7, while a fun semi-contained experience, just feels like a ripoff of Black Ops 1's final mission, just worse. This has the team go to a black site underwater where the cradle is being manufactured and prepared to be distributed across the globe. There's some legitimately difficult parts in this final segment, but it's because there's no difficulty setting and I did this thing entirely alone. When the game wants to be hard, it just throws the spongiest bullet sponges at you while you're trying to hack a terminal or turn a wheel or some shit. And when I say bullet sponges, I fucking mean it. The game has to then compensate for this by allowing you to carry more rounds than Stephen Paddock. Man, this game is aggravating. Either this game is giving me a heart attack or those 7 Gonsters I had before recording are getting to me. Finally, the team blows up the bioreactor for the cradle and it just spews that red mist everywhere and you have to make an escape attempt, but nope, you're drugged up now, boy. It's time for the final fight of the game with Emma Kagan and her 3 mechs. Yeah, again, you're clearly all cradled up as this entire landscape around you is all distorted and floating, but the weird knockoff Ed 209s are somehow still here ready to throw down. So you gotta survive and find kill streaks and other weapons to damage these mechs. All the while, you gotta dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge their attacks in addition to other enemies in the playing field. And I sure am glad these cerebral augmentations just happened to lessen the effect of these drugs, because fighting these mechs would be a real pain otherwise. Also, Emma Kagan is just watching this whole thing unfold. She's just hiding in a control room being useless as usual. 50-50 finally gets to do something other than rage bait Harper, as each time you defeat a mech, she uses her augmented strength to turn their firepower against Kagan, who stays up in the control room after 2 rockets hit the window just for the 3rd to destroy it. Fucking hell, get out of there! No. Doesn't matter. We blow her up and apprehend her, and Emma Kagan then just talks shit and tries to goad David Mason into killing her.
You're nothing but tools for the goddamn...
We then make it to the surface, and somehow 50-50 was able to get a dinghy when everyone got to the surface. I don't fucking care anymore, man. Nothing makes sense. To make matters worse, the true ending of this game is locked behind an extraction shooter mode, literally called Endgame. It's not as bad as Black Ops 3's comic book thing, but come on, man. Like, imagine if at the end of Black Ops 1, when Weaver pulled you out of the water, he was like, "We did it, Mason. We won, but now we have to go grab loot and take down Kravchenko, who's still out there, Mason. Make sure to extract, though. Don't want to lose your progress, Mason." Numbers. Oh, yeah, and when you play Endgame, you are treated to this cutscene where Emma Kagan is just domed by her second-in-command, that Dorn guy we saw at the very beginning. He then just makes a vague statement about controlling Mason's C-Link. Killing Kagan off like this was so dumb and unwarranted that it just further cements her as the worst villain in the franchise. She did literally nothing. She didn't even cause the cradle to affect Avalon. We did that shit. And I'm not even fully convinced they can build Dorn up to be something to fear. Look at how they handled Jackson Kane. They abandoned him like a baby at a fire station. Having him do this does set him apart, but I'm not getting my hopes up. You assholes. Slapping together a campaign of cliches, half-assed plots and subplots, reused assets, and worst of all, making a mess of the Black Ops timeline after 2 half-decent attempts to add to it, just for it all to crescendo into a fucking open-world ending for the sake of an extraction mode. I sit here here in befuddlement, wondering what the fuck happened between these two games. I understand I may be in the minority when it comes to celebrating Black Ops 6, but between that and Cold War, I felt as if the series was starting to hit a new stride. It found itself some focus and things were different and weird, but that's always been a big part of this series. You'd think that these developers and writers would fully clock and take into account the fan reactions not only to the Cradle and the Emergence mission in Black Ops 6, but also just the overwhelming negativity that surrounded Modern Warfare 3 and its open combat missions. But instead, they go the opposite route, doubling down on the Cradle hallucinations and the boss fights and filling half the game's runtime with open combat missions. Yeah, I liked Emergence, but I can't ignore that most reactions I see online are against it. So it still feels like an incredibly tone-deaf move by Activision, and that just sucks. So that was another reason why I wanted to dedicate a part of this video focusing on just these two games, because the series takes a sharp turn into a wall when things were really looking up in my opinion. Honestly, they were better off just remastering Black Ops 2 for 2025. I'll say that flat out. But instead, they just made up a bunch of nonsense and made another leap in the timeline just to rehash events you wrapped up in the last game. I got nothing, man. This shit is fucking tiring.
I'd like to say a few words about your arrest record. What the hell?
Yo, the sign is real simple, B. It says wrap it up. Wrap that shit up, B.
To recap, I believe that the Black Ops series of games is so inconsistent in terms of narrative quality because they jump around too much in their timeline with no clear plan how to go about it. The success of Black Ops 2 made them far too willing to make large leaps in time and still try to continue the same story or make one so disconnected that nobody knows what's going on, including the writers. Thus, it has resulted in them either cannibalizing the Black Ops story or implanting certain events that make the games worse. But with that being said, the Black Ops series is still by far the more interesting line of Call of Duty games, not just with its storylines making use of government conspiracies, some future tech, and all around outside the box ideas, but really it's interesting because of how diverse an experience they can provide in their stories. Like when they make a Modern Warfare game, you know what to expect more or less, especially when you remake the story and reuse the same characters. But with Black Ops, it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get, except for brainwashing and gas attacks. These games love their brainwashing and gas attacks. With the Black Ops series, you could get a game about an American Vietnam veteran getting brainwashed by two Russians and a Nazi scientist to assassinate John F. Kennedy, but is instead counter-brainwashed by a Soviet World War II veteran to kill them instead and allegedly JFK too. You could get a game where America and China get into a Cold War while there's a Nicaraguan drug lord slash arms dealer slash terrorist plotting on your demise because Woods blew up his sister. You could get a game where train go boom. You can even get a game where nothing happens and everyone forgets it. Also, Woods is sleeping with Mason's granddaughter. You could get a game that features fucking MK Ultra and Creed from The Office. How about a game where a former secret CIA division plans to false flag gas attack American people just to get Lou Diamond Phillips fired? Also, Desert Storm. Thought that was too cool and different? Let's triple down on the weird stuff with a game where an evil tech CEO remakes the same gas you swore you got rid of in the last game and uses it to make elite soldiers hallucinate VTOLs. Like, really, it's a grab bag of ideas. Some work, some kind of work, and some really don't work. Unfortunately, nothing is going to get better from here. I'll say it now. People hate on the open combat missions, and some people hated the weird stuff in Black Ops 6. So naturally, they packed them into one online-only mess with Black Ops 7. It's incredibly tone-deaf and shows any lack of effort in trying to make something that fans actually want. The inconsistency I mentioned is interesting, sure, but it's also fairly concerning given the outlook of the series' future creatively. Not financially, but creatively. Like it's a money mill no matter what. They don't need to try, as no matter what, people will play the game. Granted, I didn't buy it, but playing it through Game Pass is probably just as good for their metrics. For the Black Ops series, I'd say the differences in quality is a little staggering. I'd say only the first two games are great, but they're both over a decade old. They're so old, this video is being released after the year Black Ops 2 takes place. Black Ops Cold War still stands as the best sequel they've come up with in regards to the original story. I'll even bend and include Black Ops 6 because I like it, and also Black Ops 7 was so damn bad. That's 4 of the 7 of the game's campaigns being good. It's above 50%, sure, but it's still disappointing nonetheless. And yeah, some of you might say that it's not a bad average. 4 to 7 ain't bad. Like, Sure, it's a good 3-point percentage for a second unit NBA shooting guard, but when you make books, movies, games, you're striving for that 100%. But that's just what I think. I'm not a writer. I would just like to assume these people don't actually go around writing and producing these things with the intention that it's okay if it's a bad one because we'll get them next time. Maybe that's just wishful thinking. I don't know. But that's about what I have to say on the Black Ops series, so please let me know if you agree or disagree with me down below in the comments. Also, please comment your opinions on the Black Ops series. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you're watching to this point, then you're an absolute stud, and I hope you all stick around for some more videos. I hope you all had a terrific Christmas and a good New Year's. We're starting off hot with this video being posted here in 2026, so here's to another successful year for the channel. Hopefully we keep growing and get out of this slump. So here's to all the best in 2026. Have a good day, and thanks for watching.
You sound concerned too. If you're trying to be friendly, this is the dumbest way to go about it.
We're just fucking with you. You should be concerned.